Okay, but
Jamie Raskin
but
says
he still says he won the 2020
Jamie
election.
Raskin, who is a Democrat member of Congress, says that he may not vote to certify this election if Donald Trump wins. Have you asked any Democrats about that question?
but-
Have you asked Hillary Clinton? She called Donald Trump an illegitimate president after he beat her in 2016.
Trump advisor drops bombshell on CNN for their shocking bias. CNN's Fair and Balanced Act just got called out hard. A top Trump advisor didn't just expose media bias, they practically put it on a billboard with flashing lights. After years of what they call selective outrage and debate setups that feel like political ambushes, the Trump camp finally said, "Enough's enough," and came armed with receipts.
If it's called against him.
Hold on a second. We're talking about as the results are coming in, and we're talking about state-by-state issues, state-by-state results that are coming in. You're going to ask me, as we're like an hour and a half into this, whether or not we're going to accept the results. Do you ask any Democrats that question?
From moderators allegedly doubling as debate prosecutors to microphones getting mysteriously cut mid-interview, the accusations flew faster than CNN's fact checks on Trump tweets. And trust me, this isn't just your average media spat. It's a political showdown for the ages.
Have you asked any Democrats about that question?
but-
Have you asked Hillary Clinton? She called Donald Trump an illegitimate president after he beat her in 2016. Did you ever ask her or any other Democrat that question? Did you?
The Trump campaign versus CNN just reached peak television. If you thought political debates were about policy wonks and well-articulated ideas, think again. This time around, we're not just talking about who's got the best healthcare plan or the most impressive tax cuts. No, this is a full-blown media war, and CNN is the unwitting villain in Trump's latest drama series. Here's the situation. Trump's camp didn't casually stroll into debate season, sipping coffee and discussing economic strategies. They marched in and claimed that CNN moderators Jake Tapper and Dana Bash are pretty much public enemy number one. According to Trump's team, these two are guys openly anti-Trump. You know, because subtlety is for amateurs. According to the campaign, the whole debate setup was rigged from the start, like a bad game of Monopoly.
Trump's campaign, on the other hand, has been lowering expectations today by focusing on the debate itself, criticizing CNN about what it calls a 3-against-1 ambush.
But don't just take my word for it. Let's talk about this so-called 3-against-1 debate setup. Trump's team wasn't pulling punches when they painted this debate as less of a civil discussion and more of a courtroom trial. These two are infamous for throwing verbal grenades at Republicans, like it's their side hustle, while giving Democrats a cozy, soft landing with questions that practically pat them on the back. But a Trump spokesperson dared to call out CNN's alleged bias in an interview that could only be described as must-see TV. And what happened next?
I would like to talk about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, who you work for.
Yes.
If you are here to speak on his behalf,
and
I am
will
willing
do
to
that.
have this conversation.
I am stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past.
Okay,
now, as
I'm
for
sorry,
this
guys.
debate,
We're going to come back out to the
expectation
panel.
for-
Caroline,
the
thank you very much for your
expectation
time.
CNN did exactly what any impartial, unbiased network would do. They cut off the spokesperson's microphone mid-sentence. Yep, the mic was gone. No explanation, no warning, just a sudden silence. This wasn't a technical glitch. This was a primetime display of what can only be described as censorship theater. The Trump campaign wasted no time in calling out CNN for its blatant attempt to shut down any mention of moderator bias. And you know what? They got their moment. It was a mic drop moment in real time. And just like that, CNN's little stunt made headlines across the country, confirming every suspicion that maybe, just maybe, they were playing favorites in this high-stakes media game.
At the same time, he's getting probably 2-to-1 over labor union members. Not necessarily the labor union leadership themselves, but the people who work in the union, so much to the point where the Teamsters declined to endorse Kamala Harris. It's the first time in a generation that the Teamsters failed to endorse her.
Of course, CNN, being the totally unbiased news outlet they are, quickly fired back with their best "we're not biased, we swear" statement. According to them, Tapper and Bash are respected journalists with a combined 50 years of political reporting experience. Wow, 50 years? That must mean they're immune to any hint of bias, right? Wrong. Just because someone's been in the game for decades doesn't mean they're not using those years to perfect their craft of grilling Republicans while giving Democrats a "don't worry, you're safe here" vibe. Trust me, it doesn't take decades of experience to know when someone's grilling you with a side of political bias.
Donald Trump is now suing another media outlet. This time it's the Des Moines Register, that's the newspaper in Iowa, over that pre-election poll.
But wait, it gets better. Trump's team didn't stop there. They weren't just calling CNN out for being biased in a general sense. They were zeroing in on specifics. And let me tell you, when the Trump campaign goes full attack mode, they don't leave much room for doubt. They highlighted past incidents where CNN moderators had seemingly been more enthusiastic in questioning Republicans while giving Democrats a gentler touch. And to be honest, you don't need a PhD in political science to see it. Tapper's not exactly known for his softballs when it comes to Republicans, is he? To the Trump campaign, this wasn't just about being annoyed by a tough question or two. No, they argued that CNN had systematically treated Republican candidates like they were playing for the wrong team. In their eyes, it's not just moderation, it's a full-on media war, with CNN firing from the side of the Democrats.
And I'd ask people at his rallies, what's the most important issue to you? And they would say, the border. Trump was very effective.
The Trump campaign was practically waving the flag of injustice, and they weren't going to let it go unnoticed. So, if you thought this would be a simple debate about healthcare, climate change, and taxes, well, that's cute. The timing couldn't have been better, or worse, depending on your perspective. Trump's campaign has long insisted that CNN has a history of slanting coverage against conservatives, and cutting the mic was just the cherry on top. It played right into their narrative of a biased mainstream media suppressing opposing voices. In other words, thanks for proving our point, CNN.
Since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization.
Meanwhile, CNN's defenders insisted that the moderators were simply trying to keep the interview on track. Nothing says staying on track, like ending an interview the second someone criticizes you. What makes this entire ordeal even more entertaining is that this isn't CNN's first rodeo when it comes to accusations of bias. The Trump campaign dug into their archives, pointing to years of what they call selective outrage and gotcha questioning aimed squarely at Republicans. Need a harsh interrogation on live TV? CNN's got you covered, as long as you're wearing a red tie. CNN's debate moderation strategy isn't exactly subtle either. Take the 2020 presidential debates moderated by Tapper and Bash. While Democrats got thoughtful, open-ended questions like, what inspires you? Trump was asked loaded grenades like, why haven't you single-handedly ended world hunger yet? Subtle, right? And here's the thing. This perceived bias isn't just some harmless TV drama. It impacts public trust. A 2021 Gallup poll found that only 36% of Americans trust mass media a great deal, or a fair amount. Wonder why? Maybe because watching CNN moderate a debate sometimes feels like watching a courtroom drama, with one side already convicted before the trial even begins.
Voters express deep frustration with the Biden administration, and former President Trump and the future President Trump overperformed in urban areas, particularly with men.
Let's talk demographics. Trump made serious gains among Black, Latino, and even Arab American voters. In 2020, Trump secured 32% of the Latino vote, up from 28% in 2016, according to Pew Research. In Florida, he performed so well among Cuban Americans that some analysts started asking if Miami had unofficially seceded from the Democratic Party. But you wouldn't know that from watching CNN, where every voter outside Trump's core base is treated like an urban legend.
Proving that the strategy that they doubled and tripled down on over the course of the last few months absolutely succeeded and brought him.
And it wasn't just minority voters. Trump also made inroads with union workers, traditionally loyal to Democrats. In states like Michigan and Pennsylvania, blue-collar voters surprisingly showed up for Trump. Why? Maybe it had something to do with his tough-on-trade stance and America First policies. But CNN's analysis rarely went deeper than Trump appeals to racists. Real nuanced stuff there. It's almost as if mainstream media didn't want to acknowledge that their Trump is doomed narrative had cracks. If you tuned into CNN after the 2020 election, you'd think Trump lost in a landslide. He came within 44,000 votes across 3 swing states of flipping the election. So much for the blue wave they were predicting with near gleeful certainty. Then came the moment with political analysts buzzing like kids on a sugar high. CNN hosted the presidential debate without the usual bipartisan commission on presidential debates. Translation? CNN got the keys to the debate car, and Trump wasn't exactly thrilled about it.
It's very simple. You're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Can you answer why you help?
Trump's response? A cocktail of outrage and classic Trump bravado. He dismissed CNN's takeover as a setup worse than a rigged carnival game. Given his rocky history with moderators like Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, you can't blame him for being skeptical. Letting them run the debate was like asking the Fox to guard the hen house, so if the Fox also hosted primetime news shows. So, where does this leave us? It's in the middle of a media circus that's more entertaining than half the shows on cable TV. On one side, you have Trump's team throwing media punches like they're in a heavyweight title fight. On the other hand, CNN plays the role of the wounded party, defending its moderators as if they were candidates for sainthood. What's the real takeaway here? Is media bias a genuine problem or just Trump's signature political strategy to fire up his base? It's a debate hotter than July in Arizona. The truth is that today's media environment is a minefield. Accusations of bias aren't just talking points, they're political weapons. And Trump? He's a master at wielding them. But let's be honest, CNN's track record hasn't helped its case. Media narratives shape elections, influence public trust, and define political legacies, whether you see CNN as biased or just tough on Trump. One thing's clear, the media game has never been more ruthless or more entertaining.